Am I the a-hole for telling my ex he can figure out his own damn gifts for his own kids and stop expecting free stuff from me? I found out my ex was having an affair 5 years ago. He left me for the other woman, who he now has 3 kids with. We have 2 together. Our daughter is 10 and our son is 8. At first, I did my best to try and put things in the past and think of the kids by being considerate when it came to their siblings. And then they started expecting me to send more and more. I'm talking not just something for Christmas or birthdays, but Easter and whenever I get my kids something big just because. It was also the expectation that I would take them on fun trips with my kids, that I would have them in my home. And I just can't. I hate my ex. I hate his wife, and I don't love their kids, even as my kids' siblings. I don't hate them, but I also don't want to be part of their lives. Might sound terrible, but I just can't. Even with them being cute babies and toddlers, there is just too much that went on with me and my ex and his affair partner that I can't deal. Now, ex is claiming that this is hurting the kids. I'm a spiteful witch, that I owe it to our kids to be a better person, etc. And that it made the kids days to have gifts from someone other than mom and dad, since his wife is a former foster kid and he was disowned by his family for cheating. They're very religious and do not approve of divorce or any kind of cheating, and I can confirm they were disgusted by his actions. So the kids only have them. X was never a person who had a lot of friends, and definitely not someone who would buy gifts for the kids. The kids never really got into buying the gifts, which could be due to X only having 1 weekend a month due to his work schedule. But yeah, I guess part of me does feel bad because of the kids. The other part of me just really resents being in this position and being taken advantage of by my ex and his wife. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Ironic that a man who had an affair left you for the mistress is telling you to be the better person. Well, he knew he wasn't capable of being it. Not the a-hole. You do not owe your ex's kids gifts. Unfortunately, the expectation has already been set up with them, but they'll get over it. Don't let yourself be guilted. They definitely would. All his kids are under 5, so we'll probably forget eventually. I can still feel a bit guilty, but it's not a thing I want to keep doing forever. Not the a-hole. He thinks you owe it to the kids to be a better person? What does he owe to the kids then? Not the a-hole. What about not having a home-wrecking father? He owed that to his first kids. Not the a-hole. He is latched onto you like a leech. Salt won't work here, but he needs to get shut down hard. The cohesion of his family is his business, not yours. Good luck. He sounds very tiring, but you are absolutely right. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my bio dad a stranger? Long story, hope it makes sense. I, 27 female, spoke to my bio dad, 50s male, a while back, and he said he wanted me to have his last name. In the past, this man claimed my mother was a loose woman and that I wasn't his child. He would even tell me this when I was little and was visiting him. So I told him I didn't think I wanted to do that because of said history, and he made it off like it should be an honor, and that he's ready to claim me as his own. Fast forward, I get a call from his sister. She asked if I could go to court and tell a judge that my bio dad is my dad, so that it would be easier for him to get a green card. I said I'd only do it if he was going to bring my siblings over too, but I wanted to wait. Well, they moved on and tried to find another way to bring him into the country. Eventually, I spoke to his family about what happened and mentioned that he doesn't know me. He's never acknowledged my birthdays or helped my mother financially. She had to bust her bum to give me what I needed, and luckily, what I wanted. He'd only call, but with years between phone calls, visits only happened because my mom would save up to send me on vacation during school break to see her sister. And every chance I had to spend time with him, he would get drunk and just rant about how my mother is loose. I also mentioned that I tried to confront him about this, and how much pain it cost me, only for him to deny it ever happened. He might have been too drunk to remember. Anyways, once my rant was over, I topped it off with threatening to file for child support on my mother's behalf if I did help him get a green card. I said he's a stranger and has a big sense of entitlement. Well, his family didn't like that at all. They said I needed to forgive him and to let him into my life because he's my dad, and always will be. My siblings are very offended, and some of our cousins have been rude about it too. They're acting like I'm being disrespectful. I don't think I said it in a rude way, but with conviction. Am I the a-hole? Edit. This post has me shaking in my boots down memory lane. I should have clarified some things. He is currently sober, and his sister was going to cover all the expenses, including a lawyer. I'm not too sure what the process is, but I was told I could have helped the process to get a green card go a lot faster. He tried to find another way to get into the country, so I'm sure he can keep trying. I just needed time to process their request, and I only considered it for my siblings' sake. As for the child support, I felt like my mom would be entitled to some kind of compensation. I don't even know if I could file for it. She paid for a lot of medical bills insurance wouldn't cover when I was growing up. So shouldn't they try to help? She never asked anyone for a dime when I had a surgery. Never even shared about the financial pressure she was under until much later, and that made my heart hurt for her. I don't believe my mother is a loose woman. I think she chose to leave an unsafe/unhealthy situation. She became a citizen in another country, learned to write/read/speak another language, and became an independent woman who lived kinda comfortably. I also think this embarrassed them, so they slandered her. Most women stay no matter what in their town. And what makes me laugh is that my mother never spoke a word about him unless I had questions. Thank you. You guys helped me realize that this guilt isn't mine to bear, and gave me the confidence to start putting some boundaries up or cut them out. I'm more than happy to forgive them for being human. I just don't want them in my life, and that's okay. I decided that today, actually. Bless you all with whatever good vibes you believe in. Not today, Hull. Just sounds like they want to use you to get him a green card. Exactly this. And he'll disappear when you're not of use to him anymore. Until he needs a kidney. Not today, Hull. He is a stranger as he's not been father. End of story. I forget what comedian it is, so I can't give them credit or direct to a YouTube link, but he's got a bit about how if you refer to your dad as your bio dad and not just dad, it really tells you all you need to know about that relationship. Not the a-hole. If he hasn't acknowledged you over the years and suddenly wants you to have his last name, then he is the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Providing seed does not make someone a dad. You owe him nothing. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad that I wouldn't need to use my magical child of divorce powers if he didn't F up in the first place? Some background. My female 17 mom and dad separated when I was 6, and he married to Maggie when I was 8. Since then, they've had 3 kids together who I absolutely adore. Even though we're only half siblings, they all tie for the #1 spot on my list of favorite people, and we're pretty close. Plus, my dad is currently going through his 3rd marriage as he was married once before my mom. My dad told me a few days ago that he and Maggie are getting divorced for reasons I'd rather not explicitly disclose. But in general, they're both at fault. He is currently staying at my grandparents' house. It has been for about 2 weeks. But my siblings think he's away on business. He really wants to see us, so he asked me to come down and I agreed. However, when he told them, they did not take it well. At all. And while I'm not really surprised at their reaction, from the way it was described to me, I don't think he really helped. From what I understand, Maggie and him sat them down. My dad appeared virtually, told them they were getting a divorce, refused to answer any questions as to why, except for them saying that they don't love each other anymore and they haven't for a while now. They told them that there was nothing more they could do for each other and that they were sick of trying. My siblings flipped out, and apparently haven't even been speaking with my stepmother since she told them. Now, when my dad told me this, he said that while he wanted to spend time with me this weekend, he needed me to patch up the kids and use my experience as a child of divorce. I told him I wasn't a therapist, and that while I'm more than happy to help, I can't promise that they're gonna want to talk to them because they have a right to be upset. He said that they were just overreacting, and that they're gonna have to grow up and get used to it because witching about it isn't going to change anything. At this point, I just straight up told him that if some people could keep it in their pants, maybe we wouldn't be here. He said that was unfair, and that he was my father, and that I had no right to talk to him like that. I responded that he had no right to tell my siblings, or anybody, how to feel, and that I hoped for the next marriage he might get it together. He hung up. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You were 17 years old, and you were right with everything. 1, you are not a therapist. 2, you and your siblings don't ask to be born. 3, you and your siblings has a right to be upset. But for your sake, don't let you used by them. It is their responsibility to bring their stuff together, not yours. Would probably be nice if Opie to speak to her siblings as a child of a divorce and tell them that they'll get through it. Everything else is on Opie's dad and Maggie. You'd think by now Opie's dad would be more practiced at divorce announcements. But hearing this too will pass and they'll survive, if worse for the wear, from someone they like, trust, and who isn't currently engaged in breaking that trust may be helpful to them. Lord knows these kids can't rely on their parents. Not an a-hole. You're absolutely not your half-sibling's therapist, and your dad is asking you to handle them for him because otherwise, he'd have to address how he screwed up here and actually parent. Good on you for recognizing it and telling him no. Honestly, if this is his third time divorcing, you would think he'd have learned what not to do by now. Nah, he just figures the next one will be pliant and submissive enough to do whatever he wants. Not a day-hole, by the way. Not a day-hole. I wish I could buy you a beer for such an epic response. Not a day-hole. It's his and Maggie's responsibility to arrange for therapy for the kids, not to guilt you into playing that role instead. Divorce can have a huge impact on younger kids, and it sounds like he's taking this far more lightly than his kids are. Calling Dad out may have been unnecessary, but Dad was being completely unreasonable and sounds like he could use the wake-up call. That being said, your dad's hostility on the matter, if unusual, could be a sign that he feels a reasonable amount of guilt for what his kids are going through. If so, he's coming from a place of many emotions and may not be at his most reasonable right now. Nonetheless, asking you to do the job of a trained mental health professional is inappropriate, and you were right to decline. Now, for the last story, am I the a-hole for telling my grown son why he didn't grow up with his father's surname? I, 44 female, was in a toxic relationship. My ex, Joe, 49 male, met me when I was 15, and we started dating when I was 18. My mom was against the relationship, and I moved in with him at 19, because I thought that since mom was never married, she didn't know what she was talking about. I won't go into more details, but eventually I wised up, reconciled with my mom, and moved away. Not that Joe made it easy. I later met my other ex, Eric, 45 male, and I told him about Joe, and said that he might reach out to him. I warned him that Joe was a liar and just a terrible person. Fast forward to me being 7 months pregnant with our son AJ, 20 male. This was my first pregnancy, and I was very nervous because it wasn't planned. I was worried that Eric would leave me after the baby was born, and constantly ask him to reassure me that no matter what happened, he'd still be here. Eric always did until one day he didn't, and I started noticing that he was becoming distant. Eventually, he told me that Joe reached out to him and showed him pictures of him engaging in adult acts with a woman, and said that it was me and that he was my baby's father. You can't identify who the woman is, so Eric brushed it off at first, but then he thought about how I was always getting him to promise me that no matter what happened, he would never leave me, and now he had doubt. I told him the reasons why I needed to hear him say it'd stay, reminded him how crazy Joe was, and even got others to back up my story, and told him that I don't even want to talk to Joe, let alone be near him. Eric said that he understood, but to ease his mind, he wanted a DNA test. I was upset and very insulted, and asked what or if I ever did anything to make him believe that I was a cheater. Eric admitted that I never gave him a reason, so I said that there would be no test. We got into a fight, and Eric said that he refused to sign the birth certificate until a DNA test was done. I was hurt and moved out. I didn't talk to him and gave birth with my mom by my side. We took the test, and Eric was the father. He tried to apologize, but I didn't want to hear it. I would never deny access to our son, but I felt like he wasn't reliable, so I gave our son my surname so that in case Eric left him, then my son wouldn't have to deal with his own name being a reminder of the father who might abandon him. Now that AJ is a legal adult, he said he was interested in taking Eric's surname, and I was fine with that. But he asked me why he never had his dad's name in the first place. It wasn't the first time he asked, but I always brushed it off before. However, now that he was an adult, I told him the truth. AJ confronted his dad, and now he's not speaking to him at the moment. I didn't intend to cause a rift, and felt like my son would be bothered by it because it was more about us than him. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add. Keep seeing it, so I'm going to say it here and instead of each comment. 1. Yes, I told AJ the whole truth and didn't twist details in my favor. I told him that his father had doubts after seeing pictures. I felt hurt and wasn't sure if I could trust his father to stick around. I admitted to him that it was mostly issues I had, but was also hurt that Eric would trust someone who hurt me instead of me, despite admitting that I never gave him a reason to not trust me. 2. After my son was born, I developed postpartum and I got therapy not too long after giving birth, and have worked out a lot of my issues now that I'm a more mature adult. 3. Yes, despite my fears, Eric did stick around. And up until now, AJ and him have had a great relationship, which is why I feel guilt now. 4. I refused to hyphenate because, again, I thought Eric would leave and didn't want his name attached to our son if he did. 5. No, Eric never pushed to change the name, probably because he felt too ashamed after the test confirmed that I was telling the truth, but his side of the family would bring it up a couple of times. Not Dayhall. He's a grown man. He's old enough to know the truth. Not Dayhall. You were not married to Eric, and you never knew what kind of father he would turn out to be. You knew you were going to be a constant in your son's life, and it was in his and your best interest to give him your last name. Too many women give their children, who were born out of wedlock, no judgment, the last name of the father and then are tied, by name, to a man who doesn't participate in raising them. And that's what I was worried about. I've seen both sides of the situation for people growing up without their fathers, and those who didn't have their surname seemed to have an easier time than the ones who did. Not Dayhall. He believed your abuser over you, effectively letting your known abuser use him to further his mistreatment on you.